All right, away we go. We are recording now. So anyway, see a few of you guys popping in here that haven't been in a while. So welcome back to the call. And Mr. Chris there, he came over this last weekend and helped me get my green screen dialed in. So that's what we got going on in the background. Really cool. You can take any image now and just choose it as my background, and I'm on. I'm live wherever I want to be. So that's pretty neat stuff. Uh, I was having a challenge with that. What I was trying to set up in my backyard to get, the scenery there as far as like a video background to do a bunch of videos I want to do. But what I found was every time I went to shoot a video, the light was different, or there was noise or sound, or, something was going on. So he came over and helped me get dialed in, set up the lighting in here and in my new office, and set up the background and the green screen. And now all I have to do is just go out where I wanted to be to begin with, find the perfect lighting, shoot a picture of it, and now I've got it forever. So this morning I just popped onto Google and thought, now what kind of cool picture could I throw up? So I put Bora Bora in, and this is what I came up with. So back here you see that's Bora Bora behind me. So just like that. So that's how you do it. There's just a green sheet up behind me. I'll show you. I'll take it away for a minute, and you can see there's just a green sheet behind me there. So hopefully you guys can see that now. And then I go in, I choose a virtual background, and there we are, back in Bora Bora. So pretty cool stuff. Now for shooting videos and stuff, you can, this is pretty useful. It's a pretty useful tool for doing that. Because a lot of times things aren't right. Anytime I did photography for many, many years, and that was always a problem when we were doing locations was, is it going to be cloudy? Is it going to be the way you want it? Is it going to change during the day? And it was always creating those kind of issues. So this pretty much eliminates that. Makes things set, studio environment, and you can just, away you go. So for me, what that means is I can be productive creating video now 24/7. Let's say I want to, hop in here and do a video in the middle of the night. I can do it, no problem. Let's say, there's somebody mowing the lawn next door, no problem. I can just go into my office, close the doors, nice and quiet, and I can shoot video pretty much anytime now. So video's a big thing. If you guys are not using video in your advertisements, you're kind of missing the boat. It's a good channel. It's a good way to draw traffic. A lot of you have probably heard a lot of buzz about Pinterest lately. Pinterest is another really good source of traffic. It's not right for every business. It depends on what your business is and, who you're trying to get in, who you're trying to drive through. But if your audience, if your ideal clients, if they're on Pinterest or if they're on YouTube, you don't want to miss out on those traffic channels. And here's what it will do. It will give you more traffic that Google notices. If you're dependent 100% on a given search engine for your traffic, you're really in jeopardy. One thing they could do, they could change the algorithm. You could lose your traffic overnight. The other thing is it sends a signal to them that says they're giving you 100% of your traffic. They know that. Google knows if they're giving you the majority of your traffic. And what that means, if you think about it, to them, they've got all their eggs in one basket with you. They are not going to be very trusting of you because of that. If you don't have traffic from any other source, that could potentially be a problem. That could give you less credibility in their eyes. They want to feature things that are hot. So There's no better way for you to show them that you're hot is than getting other forms of traffic. If everyone's searching for you, everybody's going to you, they're coming to you direct, they're coming to you from Facebook, they're coming to you from other referral sources through links and things that are not search related, then that gives Google a signal, hey, that's hot, I want to get in on that. People around the world think this is good content, so we want to feature it. So it will benefit you greatly in the search results by increasing your rank. They want to put you toward the top because of that. So if all of your eggs are in one basket and you're just depending on Google or Bing or Yahoo or whatever search engine you're focused on, that's a problem that you could have. They can literally pull the rug right out from under you at any given time because of that. Their ranking is based on algorithms. And one of the big algorithms that tells them whether they should put you in the top anyway, or in the first place rather, is popularity. Popularity comes from links. Traditionally, it was all about links. Now, the SEO world gamed that system pretty hard by getting a bunch of undue links. So they kind of stepped away from it for a little while, and then they realized it is the best indicator of popularity. So they went back to links, but they layered another layer in on it. So now it's not just about how many links that are coming to you, it's about your traffic from those links as well. So let's say you go out and you blast 10 million links to your site. Google sees that. They say, oh, something's going on there. We want to get in on it. It's almost like a run on a stock or something. They don't want to be left out. So they'll take you and they'll plop you up to the top of the search because of that, because of all that instant popularity that you've got. But then they keep their eye on you. And they look at, okay, there's 10 million links now, but nobody's clicking on them. There's no traffic coming into them. So now all of a sudden, you're on the radar for being a spammer, and that's not good. So that can work against you. They put you up there, but they're not going to keep you there. The other thing is other traffic sources. Are other people sending you traffic? That's a very key component. So what I'm talking about here, YouTube, video advertising, Pinterest, getting traffic from other sources outside of YouTube is a very, very good thing to do. The only thing is, keep this in mind, because I'm going to talk about one more layer that they do layer on there. So you've got the links, you've got the popularity, you've got the diversity of traffic sources. Those are the top two, but then they've layered on one that's just been a killer for the SEO industry because it's incredibly difficult to game. And it's their AI, their artificial intelligence. They call it Google Rankbrain. And what it's looking at is it's looking at the user behavior. It's looking at, okay, let's say they put you at the top. They put you in the #1 spot. First thing they're going to gauge is how many people click. What's your click-through ratio? Now, they know that a #1 listing should get about a 34% click-through ratio, somewhere in that range. If you're not getting that, and let's say the #2 site and the #3 site is getting a higher click-through ratio, that's a good indicator you don't belong at the top. Now, the biggest way to get that click-through ratio up is making a compelling title and a description. If you've got boring titles and descriptions, but the guys below you have better ones, they're probably going to get a higher click-through ratio. It's going to kill you. You're going to lose your top spot really quickly. So that's very important to understand. So keep that in mind, and that goes back to the user experience. That's the first layer of Google's algorithm for user experience in the Rankbrain algorithm. So it's click-through ratio. Are you getting clicked on? If you're not, you need to fix that. Only way to fix that is title and description, because that's what people see when they see your listing at the top. So work on that first. Get that right. Make them compelling. One thing I really like to do in the descriptions is I like to truncate them. And what that means is it just means cutting it off before the end. So it leaves them with that factor of curiosity. What was he going to say next? You know, like get your free ... My free what? I have to click on it to find out what I'm going to get free. So create mystery, create urgency, you know, put calls to action. You know, this is all about marketing. Search engine, even SEO is marketing. You're marketing on through search. So keep that in mind. You know, don't miss that point of all of this is marketing. You're marketing. You're trying to move people to action. So if you don't have a call to action, you don't tell them what to do, you're soft marketing or not marketing at all. So fix that. It's easy. Easy to fix. Get that click-through ratio up. Most important thing, that's the first signal you're going to send. So, you know, they say first appearances. Well, that's your first appearance. Don't blow it. Click-through ratio is really important. Next thing that they're going to look at through this AI is the bounce rate. Did the people click and get what they wanted? If they didn't, what happens? They hit the back button. So when they hit the back button, that's a signal back to Google that, hey, Google, you took your valuable customer, you recommended this site and they didn't like it. That's a bad sign. You don't want that happening too much. I did an evaluation on a client just this week. They had an 80% bounce rate. Like, that's horrible. That means 8 out of 10 people that Google sent to you didn't like what they found. That's a bad sign. So again, that's sending signals back to Google that you don't belong at the top. So what do you think is going to happen? Your rank is going to suffer. It's going to fall. So be very cognizant of that. Make sure you're not putting links in the wrong places. Don't try and bait people into your site that aren't going to be interested in it. Again, we're back to marketing. Who's your ideal client and what do they want? That's where we want to bait them, and that's how we want to bait them. That's how we want to bring them into your world. You want to supply a stellar user experience. So, you know, this goes back to the ACT program. That's why I created it to begin with, because that's where SEO is going. SEO is going to user experience. The ACT program is 100% user experience. It's about doing the analysis to understand your audience, understand who your ideal client is, understand what they want, what they need, how they feel about it, what they're looking for. All of that stuff is really, really crucial. And then you move into creation, and creation is everything. Creation is all everything that you create in your marketing, including those titles and descriptions that I just talked about. That's what gets the click-through. That's what gets the call to action to create the movement to get them to do what you want them to do. Really important stuff. You know, next, if they don't bounce, let's say they hit your site, they don't bounce, they found something they like, the next signal is how long can you keep them there? Google's going to measure, they call that time on site. There's 2 different times they're looking at. They're looking at time on the particular page that they landed on. Then they're also looking at time on site overall. How long did they stay on the site? So that brings us to the next layer, is how many pages deep did they click? If you put everything on one page, you're eliminating that layer of how many times they click, because they're not going to click. They're staying on one page. Now, the fact that you could keep them on one page for a very long time is a big factor. That's a big plus. But if you can get them to click deeper in the process, that's even better. So the first time I saw this, Perry Belcher, who works with Ryan Dice, he called me and he said, I have something I can't explain. I want you to look at it and I want you to tell me how it happened. They had a page, had no SEO. It was a brand new page, and it was ranking #1 for a fairly competitive keyword. And he had no idea how it happened. I looked at all the variables, all the parameters, and that's exactly what I came up with. It was user experience. What they did, it was traffic and user experience. They didn't have any links to it. There was virtually no SEO at all. No, the on page was horrible. But what it was a page that had a 20-minute video on it. It was a good video, it was a marketing video, and it kept people on. almost everybody that hit it watched the video to completion and then clicked the call to action at the end of the video. So the way they got traffic to it was through an email list. They sent an email out to, you know, however many people on their list. They have a pretty big list. You know, I would say it's in the hundreds of thousands of viewers. So they sent that out to the list. They got a bunch of people to click to go to that web page. Again, that's a signal. Those people came to that web page not through Google. They went direct. Google saw that and they said, hey, something's going on there. This site is hot. This page is hot. We want to get in on it. You know, it's a trend. So they hopped on it. They put it #1 for a very competitive keyword. So it was based on traffic from another source from Google. It was based on purely on time on site. You know, it was the amount of time that they spent on that page and the fact that the majority of them clicked to the next page. So that is, you know, the UI, the user interface, the user experience was the whole thing there. That was the key to how that happened. That's what I came back and told Perry. That's what I came up with. And I have found that since then across the board, if you can create that kind of experience, Google will reward you. You know, even if you don't have links, even if you don't have some of the other stuff, because that's a signal. It does not look like you're gaming the system. It's a true signal based on people coming to a page free of choice and staying there. That's really, really powerful. So video is really good for that. Video is excellent for time on page for that particular factor. Getting people to click is another thing, and the best way to do that is to have something that they really want. Like, let's say you've got a cool video and the video's 20 minutes long and you have incredible value you're going to deliver through this 20-minute video. Okay, well, let's truncate that video. Let's spend the first 3 minutes of that video telling them what's included in the next 17 minutes. And then at the end of the 3-minute video, tell them to click here to go to the page to watch the rest of the video. That's a really good way to do it. One thing that people are doing in their marketing and their funnels right now to do that same thing is they'll offer the free thing, whatever it is, the lead magnet. It might be a free download of an ebook, it might be a video, it might be something, whatever it is, but they're not asking for the opt-in. They're just saying, would you like this for free? And you click the yes button. When you click the yes button, guess what? You just click to go deeper in the site. Now the next page is where you download it. That's where you have to put your name and email address in. That's where you opt in to receive it. That's also that is a mechanism to get more people to actually follow the action, because what it's called, it's a micro commitment. They made a micro commitment by saying yes, because all you were asking them, the only decision they had to make was, do I want the free thing? They didn't have to make a decision, do I want the free thing if I have to put my email address in? They didn't have to make that decision yet. So when you try and give them too many things to consider at once, you get less people to take the yes. If you do micro commitments, just the question, do you want the thing? Here's what it's going to do for you. Do you want it? Yes. Easy, yes. It's a micro commitment. Now the fact that they've said yes once, the chance of them following through now that they have to put their email address in goes through the roof. So it's going to increase your opt-in ratio. It's going to build your mailing list twice as fast, because you're not going to get the fallout of them making a multiple stage, multiple layer decision up front where you're not going to get as many to say yes. So that's another way. So you can see, I wanted to do this call and kind of wrap this all together so you can see your marketing will drive your SEO. So you guys that are doing SEO and you're not focused on the marketing, you're not considering the marketing, you're not considering the user experience, you're just trying to rank, you're just focused on that, you're gonna get killed. You're absolutely going to get killed if the back end doesn't match. If you don't supply a good user experience, you're going to get killed in the SEO game. It's just that simple. Everybody that's been doing SEO for years knows it. They've experienced it. They're hurting because of it. Because very few people have figured out how to game that system. There's a few things now, in as far as like SEO, a lot of people have considered, you know, some of the things that I've done in the past for SEO to be black hat, to be, you know, evil, whatever. It's just stuff that we've always done to stay ahead. We will do whatever it takes to get our clients the traffic that they need without putting them in harm's way. So typically black hat is considered, you know, something you wouldn't want to do for a real business or a real company. Any of you that have followed me for any length of time know my feeling about black hat. My feeling about true black hat is if it's undetectable, who cares what color your hat is? And that's the way I've always focused things. I've never done things for my clients that would ever put them in harm's way. So do I consider that black hat? No, I consider that an unfair advantage. You know, I heard a really cool saying that came out of Entrepreneur magazine, and it said, the road to profit is paved with unfair advantage. And that's exactly what I've been doing for my clients for the last 25 years. So let me just bring that forward to you guys and show you how you can pave this road with unfair advantage. We developed a tool called Rainmaker that it basically games the user experience. It gets a large network of computers to run searches for you for your brand, to show Google that your brand is important, even if it's not. It will show them that the user experience is good, because when our network of computers does these searches for you, not only does it click, it gives you the click-through ratio that you need, it also gives you the time on site, the time on page, the multiple clicks deep. It does all of that for you on autopilot. So that's one way. It will lower your bounce rate across the board. We have another thing. We've got a script inside. You guys all have access to this in the Dominators Club. There's a free script that I've loaded up there for you, and it's called the debounce script. And what it is, it's a line of code that you can put into your web pages. You put it in the head tag, and basically what it does, it rewrites the browser history. So let's say somebody goes to Google, they see your site, they click on it, and they don't like it, and they hit the back button. Well, what this script does, when your page loads in their browser, it rewrites the history. So when they do click the back button, they don't go back to Google. They don't send that bad signal back to Google. They go to a deeper page in your site. So not only are you reversing the bounce rate, you're putting that in your favor, you're also driving them deeper in your site. You're sending another positive signal to Google. You're also throwing a Hail Mary pass. It's like, you know, they didn't like it to begin with, so here's your chance to fix that. So if you can figure out why they may have bounced off and give them another opportunity to stay, another reason, maybe a call to action. And a lot of you have seen this before, like when you try and exit a page and you get a little pop-up window. That's not the same thing. It's the same concept. It's the same principle. It's, hey, let's give them another opportunity to stay. It's the same there, but it's not the same the way Google sees it. Google doesn't see that little pop-up window as anything important. But what they do see is they see a bounce. If they click that bounce, that back button, they do see that as an important factor. So this eliminates that. They're never going to hit the bounce back button again. They're only going to be driven deeper into your site. So that's the debounce script. So that's a couple of ways that we can kind of leverage this in, you know, what some people might call a black hat way, but it's in no way ever going to get you into trouble. It's undetectable. It's not something that's ever going to put you in harm's way. So, you know, some people have asked me, why would I have a a high bounce rate, especially on service businesses. If you're, let's say you're a dentist, and when somebody needs a dentist, they're not going to your website to spend a bunch of time there. They're not going there to read about dentistry. They've got a toothache and they want it fixed. So what they're looking for is your phone number. As soon as they find it, guess what? They hit the back button. They're out. They're done. So that could damage you because of normal behavior. So that's where it's really important to, stand out. Now, again, if you've got 50 dentists and they all have the same type of problem, it's not going to necessarily single you out and give you a huge drop because of that. Again, the algorithm, it's artificial intelligence. It looks at everything. So if it sees, all the dentists have the same problem, that factor is going to become null. But when you go above and you come out of that factor and you shine, then you get the benefit. The rest of the 50 get nothing. So that is an unfair advantage. That's what you can get by using, these type of things. So from an SEO standpoint, that will give you incredible advantage and leverage over what somebody, doesn't have that. So that's pretty cool stuff. If if you guys have questions about any of this stuff, feel free. You can unmute at any time if you've got something you want me to cover specifically. I thought this has been the hottest topic lately. A lot of people now in the industry and tool providers and stuff, they're releasing their videos and PDFs and all this stuff talking about the Google Rankbrain algorithm. They're finally getting it. I started talking about the fact that this was coming in 2010. 2011, we started actively building Rainmaker, and we released it like about a year after that. So I have been teaching on this, the fact that this is the way it's going to be in the future, and it is that way now. So it is fully come to fruition. And it's, every time I see somebody come out with something about, we just figured out Google's Rankbrain, it just makes me laugh. They're finally figuring it out. I've been telling them what it was and how it worked for years now. So it I get some amusement out of that. But anyway, come on out. If you guys have questions, any place you're stuck, go ahead, Dan.
Hey, John. Going back to the time on site, and I think in one of your other calls, you mentioned websites like BuzzFeed and similar. They'll do articles, and you kind of have to click through to get to what's next on the list. Does WordPress have a plugin? So if we write blog articles on our website, does WordPress have a plugin to kind of allow that feature on the blog page?
Yeah, as far as like to click to the next piece.
Click to the next piece, but kind of staying within the same article, if you kind of know what I mean.
Sure, yeah. Actually, WordPress is that way by default. When you create a blog, like let's say you go in and you create a new blog post, what it's going to do, it's going to add the very first piece, and then it's going to add read more to go to that full post. So that's one of the things that just out of the box, WordPress did right out of the gate.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can actually force that too. I mean, you can, it does it just by default, but you can force it to do even more. I see this all the time. I see it in entertainment sites, and it's brilliant the way they do it. Like, we go to the movies a lot, so I'm on this site called Movie Phone a lot, and I'm there to look and see what movies are playing in my local theaters. But on the sidebar, they've got this sidebar, and they throw out like the wildest topics, like, and I'm just going to throw these out for sake of example, but the who's dating who, or the check out the 10 most expensive houses owned by actors and actresses. And that's something like you go, oh, what does Leonardo DiCaprio's house look like? Well, here's the top 10. And you get on there, and the one that they baited you with is probably number 40. They said there was 10, but you're going to click through and click through and click through looking for the one that you wanted, and you're going to be 40 pages deep by the time you find it. And it's absolutely brilliant the way they've done that. I see a lot of news sites do that. News and entertainment, they've really nailed it as far as that, getting people to stay on the site and dig in multiple pages deep. If you can set that up like scrollers where they have to click to scroll, image galleries, anything that's valuable to your user. People love images. They love to scroll through images. Videos, same way. YouTube actually will advance you to the next video as soon as the video you're watching is over. So that's another page deep. They've considered that. So anything you can do to get people to click, stay, see more, look at more pages is going to be absolutely awesome for your user experience. So as far as plugins too, WordPress has a million plugins. So if you go to the the WordPress depository, I guess it is, and you search, you could probably find a plugin for just about anything you want to do.
So kind of a follow-up question is then, it really does take some kind of content planning as far as writing goes. If you're looking to keep someone on your site longer, instead of one long article, you want them to break it up.
Well, like for you, I'll give you a good example of how you could do it. You could say, like you could figure out what ideal client you're working on for for a law firm, let's say, and then you could come up with a top 10 list of the top 10 things you need to know. Like, let's say I have an attorney friend of mine, and we've done his site for many years. He does this a lot. He came up with, here's the top 3 things you need to know within 30 seconds of getting in an auto accident. Before you call anybody, you need to know these. And when you go to the site, you'll see the first one, and then you got to click on to get to the second one, and then you got to click to get to the third one. So he did it that way. He broke up his list into separate pages that you have to click through to get to them. So that's something you could do. You could do it with top 10 lists, things that you need to know, things to watch out for, things that could harm you, anything that has to do with the needs and wants and desires of your ideal prospect is going to be perfect for this.
Are you willing to share the website of your attorney friend so I can take a peek?
Yeah, actually, I don't remember what it is offhand, but I can look it up. His name is Russell Kerr, so you could probably do a search for him. And he's here in Huntington, not in Huntington Beach. I think it's considered Santa Ana where his office is. But he does that. He does it on newsletters.
Does he do personal injury?
Yeah, he's a personal injury guy. So
I think I made with him.
Yeah, so his big thing really is auto accident. That's like one of his big things that he works on.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, no problem. All right, anybody else? Go ahead and unmute if you got a question or something. Go ahead, Luis.
Hello, John.
Hi.
I got a question about SEO.
Okay.
I've been listening to several hangouts in YouTube and regarding SEO. It was said a few weeks ago that SEO nowadays is like SEO in 2009, 2010, back with the variable or with the user experience and Rankbrain.
Yep,
What's your opinion about that affirmation?
That's pretty much right on, and I'll tell you why. There's a couple of different reasons for that. before RankBrain, Google was so focused on everything they could do to stop spam and stop, SEO and all of that. And they were incredibly aggressive about it. It was also a time before Google had diversified into so many different areas. I mean, now Google's main focus isn't necessarily search engines. Google's main focus is everything. They've got divisions now. They're really concerned with how do they create an auto-driving car. So their focus has gone from one thing out to a bunch of stuff. So their resources used to be allocated, 90% to SEO, to killing it. And now it's not near as strong on their radar because they've got their eye on so many other balls. They're diversifying into that. And the fact that they did such a good job with RankBrain, they think, SEO is not that important to them anymore to protect it because they've got RankBrain in place. So as far as SEO going back to, 10 years back or, whatever they're calling it, back to the good old days, they are right. There's not near as much heat on stuff that you used to be able to get away with, but then you couldn't get away with it anymore. So they've loosened the reins up on all of that stuff. They don't have to watch that like a hawk anymore because they know, let's say they take false signals and they put your site at the top. As long as Google's RankBrain is watching for the user experience, it's automatically going to take your site out of the mix. So, a lot of that stuff, the biggest thing, like the most key important factor I can tell you is to make sure you have a stellar user experience. And then you can go back to a lot of that stuff that was considered black hat to get your site up and noticed, is because that's the big thing. If you're not noticed, you can never prove you have a good user experience. So all those old tricks and old factors, they will work. Google will allow them now because they've got that secondary layer to figure out if it's real or not. So what you're hearing, what people are saying, it is true. I'm not sure that a lot of them understand why it's true, but they're seeing from their testing, yeah, they do those old things, and yeah, the rank does spike. so they are on the money from that. But you need to have a clear understanding. You don't want to do that stuff to get it to spike just to see it tank again if you have a bad user experience. So bring the marketing in, figure out what the ideal client wants and make sure that you're delivering that in a very stellar way. So when you do get the spike, you can take advantage of it and you keep it. You can keep that ranking.
Okay, so on top of that, Google is doing the same like when Mad Cats started doing the videos and educating the masses about SEO. Now it's starting John Mueller to do the same. Videos, how to educate people, title, meta description, and so on and so forth. So in a nutshell, could it be possible that with, let's say, some tactics in Black Hat, you can rank, and if you implement good user experience, let's say that the layer of RankBrain is check, so you can rank your site, let's say using traditional techniques in SEO, and if you provide a good user experience, you are going to remain in the first position. If you don't, you're going to lose.
Yep, that's exactly right. And, I know with John Mueller, he kind of took the place of Matt Cutts. Matt Cutts put out so much bad information that he kind of lost credibility. It was almost like, for the people in the know with SEO, they would look at what Matt Cutts said and they would laugh. They'd say, whatever he says, just do the opposite and you'll get a good SEO factor. And, his job really was to keep people from gaming the system. So, when he would tell you what to do, it didn't necessarily mean that was going to be in your best interest to rank your site. He was putting out good information as far as what you should do legitimately as a company and all that. He wasn't steering companies wrong, but he was trying to steer the SEO community away from SEO. He was doing it with a lot of fear factors. He would say, like for instance, he would tell you, if you do this, you're gonna lose, you're gonna drop, we're gonna know what you're doing, and you're gonna be done. And the fact was, they didn't have anything in place to actually monitor what he was talking about, or so it was interesting. Whatever was working really well, he would poo-poo it. He would go against it just to keep you from doing it. Before they had the algorithms in place to actually combat things, that was his job, was to steer you away from those things that were incredibly effective. And he lost so much credibility by doing that, that finally percolated out to where they had to get rid of him. So they took him out of the loop, and then he got replaced with John Mueller. So that's pretty much how that whole thing went down. And I don't think it's near as much of a factor now. The world in general, they look to Google for the answers. So they need to have some sort of a masthead like John Mueller in place to provide those answers. So I don't think they're near as skewed and stuff like when Matt Cutts was doing it. His job really was to take the things that we already knew and scare us to not use them. So that was kind of a lot of what his purpose was. And I saw that right from the very beginning, because he was talking about stuff that we were doing that was very effective, and he was saying it wasn't. He was saying to do these other things, and we knew from testing that it was absolutely wrong. It was absolutely backwards. So that happened a lot. A lot of guys that did testing and knew, and they've been around for a long time, they knew not to listen to him. So, all right.
And final question. Another affirmation I've listened in several hangouts is SEO tools are going to show that Google is not as sophisticated as people think it is, because SEMrush, Ahrefs, and several others SEO tools are tracking and analyzing so much information that it could be very accurate about the information that Google processes. What's your opinion about that?
Yeah, they are correct in that assumption that Google is not as sophisticated as they want you to think. The only thing about that sophistication that really did come out and put them a step above is the Rankbrain algorithm. The fact that they know the user experience and they can tweak that. They can take any of those factors and tweak those to effectively move the rank up and down. But absolutely right. I mean, I have always made reference to most of the search engines as, it's just a big dumb kid. It's like stealing candy from a baby. If you know the factors and you know how to go around them, you can do that fairly easily. And Rankbrain really was the first thing that made a major change to that. And a change that put a lot of SEO guys out of business because they just didn't know how to deal with it. And the reality is, when you're working with clients, most clients do not want to change. They don't want to change their site. They want the traffic. They want you to do the SEO. They want to get the results. But when you go to them, you say, hey, look, we need to make changes on your site. They put up the silver cross. They don't want to do it. So I've had to cut off a lot of customers because of that. And I don't take on a lot of customers because of that. When, for me to take on an SEO client now, I've got to ask the questions, are you willing to do what I tell you to do? Because it's important. Are you willing to put, build your site around a marketing campaign versus just boring information that nobody wants? Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to find out who your ideal client is and what their real desires are? Are you willing to build, a marketing campaign around that so we can create a good user experience? And if they're not, I'm not really interested in taking them on as an SEO client, because it's going to be almost impossible for me. I'm never going to be able to win. And for me, there's no reason to play the game unless you're going to win. It's just, I've never entered into any kind of game that I didn't expect to win. So it's the same thing with, with these clients. And you will find that most of them are not willing to participate. Most of them don't want to change. They want the SEO, they want the traffic, they want the rank, but they're not willing to do what it takes to do it. So in the old days, that was easy. I could get around that. I could use, all these things that everybody considered was black hat that never got caught. So who cares what color the hat was? I used to do cloaking. I know this is a perfect example. Matt Cutts, in one single conversation, told you that if you used cloaking in any way, shape, or form, they would know it and you would get banned, 100% banned. And in the next sentence, he's talking about a product that they use called the Google Optimizer or something like that, where it was a thing that you could split test your pages to see what was more effective for click-through ratio. And what he was telling you was, we're doing cloaking. We have a cloaking tool. We want you to use it. But if you use cloaking in any way, shape, or form, you're going to get banned. So, I mean, what does that do to his credibility? In one sentence, he's contradicting himself 100%, 180 degrees in each direction. So, I used cloaking for years. We still use it. Cloaking is basically delivering content out to a viewer based on certain criteria. The way we would do it, I don't know if you guys remember, but back in the beginning, before Google, even before Yahoo, there was like 10 search engines, that you had to optimize for, and each one of them wanted a different thing. They all had a different algorithm. If you optimized for one, you'd kill yourself in the other 9. So you had to decide, which one do I want to optimize for? Well, what I did was I created 10 different sites, 10 different pages for the same content, and I would deliver that content based on who was calling for it. If Alta Vista was calling for it, I knew their IP, so when their IP requested that page, they got the IP that was optimized for Alta Vista. When web crawler would come, they would want a different algorithm, different page. So I would give them a different page. So I used cloaking, and I was able to optimize and beat all 10 search engines with the same site. And when a normal user came, their IP didn't match anything in my database, so we would show them the real site, whatever we wanted them to see. And typically, back then, SEO was all based on on-page code. So I would put on-page code that the real user would see that would get you banned if you used it. If you showed that code to any search engine, they'd kick you out. So for all the people that wanted to copy me, guess what happened to them? They copied all the code that I put in there that I baited them with, and they all got banned. And they never knew what the hell I was doing. They could never figure it out because it was cloaked. They couldn't see what pages I was serving up to the search engines, what pages I was ranking, and how I was doing it. And that same system, I still have that. It still works. It's never been banned, ever. I've used it for clients for, all those years. We could serve up a different user experience based on the IP. You can do that. I didn't come up with it. Yahoo actually developed it. The place that it came from originally was Yahoo. And the reason that they developed it was because if you guys were in web development back in those days, Internet Explorer was new on the scenes. You had the predecessor to Firefox, which was Netscape. You had the Netscape browsers. You had multiple browsers, and when you created your website, the search engines would look at it, and it look good through one browser, but it would look horrible through another one. So the way the browsers would actually display your websites, it was impossible, again, to build your website that would look good in all the browsers. So what Yahoo did was to solve that problem for themselves, because they had the same problem. The Yahoo website looked horrible in the IE browser. So they created what they called a screen door. When you made a request, you went through the screen door, and it identified what browser you were using, and it would display the right page for you based on your browser. It was cloaking. It was the first cloaking I know of. The first time I saw it, I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And the fact that you could deliver the site criteria based on the browser, based on the operating system, based on the IP. I looked at that and I thought, I know the IPs of all the search engines. I could deliver content based on the IP. So that's where that stuff goes back to. And again, the search engines, they're not very sophisticated. They had no idea. I was always concerned about that, though. I was always concerned that Google would actually see my real pages, and I confirmed that they didn't, because I got called into Google for some testing, and I actually got onto one of their terminals and I started looking at some of my clients' sites to see what they would see, and they saw exactly what I wanted them to see, which was the cloaked content. So I confirmed from within inside Google that what I was doing what I thought it was doing. So it was pretty cool stuff. That was really fun times back then. And in the process of developing that cloaking software and doing all of that cloaking, I actually had developed a content creation. It was like the ultimate spinning tool. It would spin based on paragraph chunks that were relevant, and it would roll pieces into the paragraphs to make the paragraphs themselves unique, based on replacements of adjectives and nouns and things that were all based on databases that were specific to the one topic. So it would read 100% human readable every time. It would spin 100% unique paragraphs every time. And then it would spin the entire page, pulling spun paragraphs in. So it was spinning inside of spinning inside of spinning to create an entire website. And it would spin the navigation, it would spin everything. So I could create a 1,000-page website. All I had to do is give it a list of keywords, and it would create a page for every keyword. And it would spin the content, it would spin the pages, it would spin the entire site. And I always said, when Google threw content out the window, that was probably one of the reasons they did it. That was one of the reasons they called me in to do testing. They wanted to know about that system and how it worked and what my plans were for it. And very shortly after that, they threw content completely out the window. They went from on-page to off-page. That's where they turned everything into a popularity contest, into linking and all that. So I always said, if Google ever goes back to content, I'm going to own it. So that's going to be pretty cool if they ever decide to take that step back, because I've got that system still in place. So, all right, anything else before we close out? I want to tell you guys, I really appreciate you guys showing up on these calls and asking questions and letting me know what's important to you, so I can be on topic for you guys and help you and get you where you need to go. So, all right, last call before we close out. I go back to Bora Bora here behind me. All right, guys. Well, that's it for this week. We'll be back on next week, regular time. So if think of your questions, think of stuff. I mean, put me to the test. That's what I'm here for. Anything you've got, marketing challenges, traffic challenges, this call is open for anything. So take advantage of it, and until then, we'll see you guys next week.